And so we decided, well, what better thing to do than get all of our spouses. Of course, there's like 40 people in the chat, and it was a little bit hectic to manage the conversation, but it was so much fun, man. It was so cool.
That's awesome.
And
like, that's how you know it's like peak midlife, is that your conversations are about spouses and about having kids in the plane and all these, like, it's death for anybody under 30 in our audience. It's like they don't even bother. Like they hear like 2 minutes and like, nope, never again. So it's
but then they'll get to a point in their lives where that is then relatable, and then they're gonna want to tune in for that.
There you go.
Be like, wait a second, I want to hear this.
Wait.
The number one thing that my wife says that I just think is so funny is, because the whole thing was basically that she's flown with Ben. She flies with other people. She's not nervous at all. But when she flies with me, she's nervous. And you ask her about that, and she says, well, I saw the sausage get made. Like, I knew you when you were not a pilot. You know what I mean? I'm like, yeah, you're the one.
I saw how this was created.
Yeah. It's like, you see me struggling with the pickle jar, you know, like.
Oh man, that's funny.
So you don't have that, right? Because as far as I know, Josh, you've been a pilot since you were 3, you know?
Yeah, I wish. That'd be great.
Oh man, we'll get into this, but for kicks, I went back and dug back into your back catalog, Josh. And it's interesting to see, like, when people get it more accomplished, like what they'll kind of leave on their channel and maybe what they won't, you know. But man, you've got like some oldies but goodies out there, the gel kind of Jello GoPro stuff and all that.
Yeah,
I love it.
the rolling shutter with the vibration with the crappy mount. And
finally, somebody knows what rolling shutter is. I appreciate this.
Oh, I hate rolling shutter, man. Bane of my existence.
Yeah.
It's what I grew up on.
Let's do this. Let's not burn any more of this, right?
All right, let's do it.
I'll hit go live here.
Hello, welcome to the 47th episode of the Midlife Pilot Podcast. We're glad you're with us. My name is Ben. I'm a private and instrument rated pilot based out of Atlanta, currently in Studio 126 at the Ramada in Henderson, Kentucky. We are glad you're with us. We're streaming live on YouTube. Tonight's special night, Monday night. We didn't want to take people away from their Halloween festivities, so we decided to go a night early. But usually you can find us at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Tuesday nights. Tonight we have our co-host with me, Brian Siskin from the heart of Music Row in Nashville, Tennessee. Hey, Brian.
How's it going, everybody? Super glad to be here. And real quick, Ben, it's a different room number than what's in The Shining, right?
It's on the lower floor. I'm told this room is not haunted at all and is not sought after by madmen.
Okay.
I was assured it was the studio room, so thank you for that. Ted from Portland, Oregon, our light sport pilot extraordinaire. Welcome, Ted.
Light sport West Coast, yeah. Hey, how you doing?
West Coast, best coast. And then we have a special guest tonight, a big fan of a great guy. We're really happy to have you with us, Josh Flowers, who is based in Austin, Texas, but currently elsewhere at this time. Welcome, Josh.
Hey, appreciate the invite. Always happy to talk with fellow aviators and appreciate the invite on y'all's show.
Thank you. So we, the guys and I had gotten together a couple of weeks back, actually, coming up with ideas, and we decided, where are we in aviation YouTube? And to kind of get things kicked off, the one thing I was going to mention is that, I started watching 3 different YouTubers in 2017 when I was really in the heart of my private pilot training. And it was Aviation 101, Flight Chops and Steve-O, and specifically Josh's videos. Man, it when you're learning, there was a lot to consume there. So thank you for that, Josh, to start out with. But that was 6 years ago, and the state of YouTube is not what it once was, and we just wanted to bring you aboard. And let's get the conversation going. Brian, I think you wanted to mention a couple of things out there too.
Well, first of all, hey, Josh, I'm so glad you're here. And I really, there's a lot of people that you think, well, this guy's super busy. He won't give you any of his time, but you were nice enough to tell me, or at least keep me from killing myself when I flew out to West Texas by giving me some high density altitude advice that I very much took to heart. Now, I will say that it was a little strange later when I got the invoice or whatever for like
Yeah, that's
point-
standard.
0.3 ground school or whatever. But that's cool, man. I mean, look, we're all out here just trying to make a living. So, no, but it cannot be overstated that it really means a lot. I've been really fortunate in my life to talk to a lot of amazing, creative, and interesting people of all kinds, and people that have inspired me and all this through various podcasts and other areas of life. But I'd always just want to make sure that, more than anything, I just appreciate you being here because time is all we got. So first
That's
of all,
right.
I just wanted to share that. And then
Hey, I appreciate the invite, really.
yeah, man. And then otherwise, the first thing we want to get into right away is, and for the audience, we're talking about this, everybody here pretty much consumes YouTube on some level. Honestly, it's been probably the gateway drug for a lot of us to even get to aviation.
Right.
So that being said, as you spend more time and you consume more things, you start to get a frame of reference for kind of what's going on, right? Like you've got some people maybe on the internet that you shouldn't maybe take as an example, or you've got people that are doing really amazing things, but they feel so far away from you because they're flying in planes and living in some world that seems kind of foreign, right? And then you have people that kind of feel like they really hit the sweet spot. You've been very good about keeping it relatable, but first of all, I just wanted to say, what if you had to take a survey of the lay of the land of YouTube and how it's maybe gotten to where it is now, what are some observations maybe you have about how we've gotten to where we are now, and then we'll talk more about the future. But
it's a very loaded topic to talk about. There are so many different little corners of it, little moving pieces of social media and YouTube as a whole. But when I started, I put out the first video in 2010. And it almost seemed like, at least from what I could observe at the time, it seemed like a novelty to be able to put small cameras in airplanes, mount them, and record the intercom audio and edit that into the video. When I first started making videos, first of all, the camcorder was recording on a mini DV tape, and that was mounted to the windshield, pointing straight out the window. It did not have a rolling shutter. It had a global shutter. And to record audio, I was using an older Hi8 camera that had RCA audio inputs, and I had a splice and cables going to the back, and it was like a zip-tied bundle that I kept in my flight bag that I would run between the seats. That was my method of doing things back then, and over time, of course, we changed to action cameras. Now you have smaller cameras that have rolling shutters, more challenges to deal with, but now we're recording on SD cards, micro SD cards now. I record everything in 4K. I moved to a digital audio recorder probably in 2011, right after I started making the videos, and just found out what the challenges were, figured out how to sort through those, like how to get the crystal clear audio, what are the nuances there, and what type of device do you need, etc. Now that we have moved into an age where everybody has a 4K camera in their pocket, the space is very, I don't want to sound cynical here, but it is very noisy. Everybody can put out anything they want, and that's great. Like if you go on Instagram, you go on YouTube, everybody is sharing any little experience that they themselves thought was cool, and it's a way for us to have like a tiny little window into all of these other people's lives and find the relatable bits to ourselves in their own flying, and that's how we get them inspired. That's where it's born. So where it's really come to now, I feel like you have to put in a lot more effort to truly stand out on YouTube and social media. That leads me to the topic of clickbait that I am very seldom ever. I mean, I will flirt with the edge of like, yeah, that thumbnail's relevant, or that title's relevant, but I just refuse to get out to deviate from my overall mission for clicks and for views. Do I make somewhat of a living doing stuff on social media? Absolutely. Will I sacrifice my overall mission, which I'll get to in a second, for clicks and views? Absolutely not. I'll hang the headset up before I do that kind of stuff. I say this in the intro of all of my videos. I have made it my mission as I have matured and grown up alongside my content. I started putting videos out in 2010 as a student pilot. I have made it my mission to promote safe practices while sharing the beauty the world has to offer through the lens of a camera. That's my mission, period. There's nothing else to it. So I will continue, for example, a video that I just finished editing that's going to go out, I guess, in about 2 weeks. I decided to bring a lot more little training tidbits into this video that normally would have just been kind of, actually, it was flying to Marfa, Brian. So very, the scenery. It's very scenic and very pretty, and it otherwise would have been just kind of the, hey, we're using aviation to get here and tell this story, and we're going to show the beauty of this flight and what there is to tell at the end of the trip. But I really took a lot more moments out of the video where it was just kind of like we're going to pause here and I'm going to talk about something. And actually one of those topics was density altitude. And I introduced this term, density altitude, for those who are not familiar with it. And this is in general, in generic terms, this is how it affects performance, etc. So I try to do little things like that, capture people's attention with the beauty and the pretty shots and the cinematography as best I can. I am not a pro at this stuff, but as best I can, capture their attention with that. And also say, hey, by the way, this is something, if you're going to go do a flight like this is something you should consider. Or, hey, did you notice the air traffic controller just said this? This is why they said this. Little things like that. So I think that is what my mission has really been over time. That's what I am going to stick to, period. And in the very noisy space that is YouTube now, where there's clickbait, there's a lot of great content out there. There's also a lot of junk, man. There's a lot of stuff that's just, I mean, I even saw an Instagram post yesterday that was so factually inaccurate. I had to screenshot it just to like figure out if I want to like make a video about this topic or not. But just somebody had an engine issue and wrote in the caption what they did as if it were advice, and it was just downright factually inaccurate. So there are great things out there on social media. There is also just flat out junk. And you got to kind of have the critical thinking about you to be able to sort it out. So I think that's where social media really stands, or at least that's the main issue I've seen with it these days.
You hear that, Ben?
Oh, I was waiting for that. It's like Josh finally found Ben's Instagram.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, and One Dull Geek in our audience, who's a friend of the show, had posted up there, your full-length touch and go videos, Josh, was what convinced me that pursuing my childhood dream of becoming a pilot wasn't out of reach, and it demystified the process. And it didn't take me long to figure out, okay, this is, and I'm not going to call anybody out, but this is garbage and this is valuable. And it doesn't have to be all about teaching. There's a couple of YouTubers out there that I enjoy just watching their banter when they're flying from point A to point B. It can be funny and entertaining, and you learn about destination. So it doesn't always have to be about training. There's still a lot of great content out there. In regards to the garbage, I saw a meme the other day on Instagram, and it was a Volkswagen with about 140 GoPros mounted to it. And it said, if people were learning how to drive cars like students learn how to drive or fly airplanes, this is what the car would look like. And it was
absolutely
completely decked out in GoPros. So I appreciate that.
I think it speaks
I
to,
appreciate the feedback.
I think it speaks to there's a rise of this particular vanity, I suppose, that I feel like that's the thing that sort of convolutes in that sort of post-truth way you're sort of talking about, Josh. It's
Mhm.
like I think that there's room for things that are fantastical and or comedic or caricatures or whatever. And then there's also, I mean, hey, if there's room for like the kind of things that I make, it's like there's room for just about anything. And but that being said, what do you feel like, Josh, that you see that maybe, I mean, obviously that's kind of what we want to see maybe less of, is the
Mhm.
things that are not being helpful, if not downright problematic. But on the flip side of that, because I guess I'm trying to overlay this with the notion that YouTube rewards this, and this is part of the problem, right? Like, it's not, people are incentivized to do things that are perhaps less authentic. But maybe you can speak to some things that you see going on now that you feel like, wow, like there's actually people taking it to another place, or that there's hope for a perhaps more authentic and truthful future.
Well, it's all over the place. I see stuff left and right. Stuff that's really great, and then I'll every now and then I'll come across a post or a video where I'm like, that didn't really do anything for me. But then again, that's my personal preference. Also, I want everybody to express themselves and create what you want to create, post what you want to post. That's me as a person saying that. Now, me as a flight instructor talking, that is where I start to have a bit of a different opinion. Now, as a flight instructor, I will still say I want people to post what they want to post, create when you want to create, be creative, use that as your creative outlet, and inspire others to get into flying. Like that's a big reason that I do it. YouTube early on played a really big role in getting me into the whole aviation filmmaking thing and got me fired up about airplanes even more so because my dad got me
Yeah.
into it to begin with. So I want people to do what they want. And I always tell people, if you want to start a YouTube channel, don't worry about what anybody else is doing. Don't worry about what you think an audience is going to want to see. Produce what you want to produce. It's going to perform terribly, most likely in the beginning, but keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. And eventually your audience is going to manifest itself. Great movie. Kevin Costner said, if you build it, they will come, right? Movie. We know what that is,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Oh, Dances
we-
with
oh, yeah.
Wolves.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Yellowstone.
So
yeah.
you're kind of touching on something, and I'm going to speak for my friend Brian, but he has a creative manifesto, and I wish I brought my hat, but it's nobody cares. Create like nobody cares.
Right.
Dance like nobody's watching.
Right.
And he's got a whole video on this, and I have ventured out a little bit with one or two videos under that vein, and I don't care how they do on YouTube. It's expressing myself and saying what I think it needs to be said. So I completely
Right.
agree with that. Um,
hmm
there are videos out there that I'll watch, and again, this is where I consume most of my media. People posting their first solos, and some of them are super sweet, and I think are awesome, and they bring a lot of joy. And then there's those that look like they're just going for the clicks, and I can tell about
Yeah.
30 seconds into it, I'm banning it. I'm getting away from it.
Right. Yeah, there's definitely a line. And I, Brian, we touched on this earlier before we started the live, but that my archive on YouTube does go back quite a bit. There are some that go back even further than that, than what you can see, um, that are currently not visible. And I made them unlisted after I became a CFI because I started to look at some of the things I did and published as a student pilot that I was either with a CFI or maybe I was a solo student, which would make me solely responsible. But I looked at some things out like that can be construed in a not so accurate way or a not so good way without additional context here. So my plan eventually is to, it's just on my massive to-do list, but my plan eventually is to do like a CFI Josh reacts to student pilot
Oh,
Josh
yeah.
from a decade ago
Yeah.
because I have all that
Josh
stuff on
cast.
camera. Right. That's right.
You're like, I'm reporting myself to the FISDO.
Yeah.
Well,
You're
and,
only offending yourself on it. Yeah.
That's right. And I can go back and look at a lot of things that I posted or a lot of archival footage that I have of myself flying and be like, man, I wouldn't fly with that guy. And that was me, 11 years ago or whatever it may be. So, and I think that sort of humility is really important to showcase on YouTube too. Now, I'm not saying that like everybody who creates content in aviation needs to, be humble and talk about it on camera. Like, be creative, make what you want to make. That is my mission. I want to talk about that stuff. I want to highlight my screw ups. I want to over explain things and provide additional context so that almost like try to answer the questions that I know are going to be down in the comments before they're even asked. Just like this
Right.
last video, I kind of hinted at some density altitude stuff, but I didn't explain it in the plane. So I took 45 seconds to cut away and have a voiceover explaining that. And I referenced the pilot's handbook and said, link is down below, go read on it.
I have to say, it was really weird coming into Marfa when it was 100 degrees and I realized how fast I was going over the ground,
Right.
I mean, the
Right.
sensation of that, and the way I tried to explain it to my wife was I said, imagine if you're used to commuting to work every day and you know what it kind of looks and feels like when you're going 75 miles an hour. But for whatever reason, because of some environmental condition, you have to go 110 to go 75 and you feel like everything's happening really fast. That's kind of
Right.
how I experienced it. But yes, thank you for telling me to look at my airspeed indicator and not, isn't that funny? Like I think that's one of my favorite things about aviation is that there's always these counterpoints of perception versus reality or
Right.
tendencies versus, just the idea of like when I got my tail wheel and it's like, you can't give the yoke back, like, whereas like
Right.
there's so many things you build
It's-
into muscle memory that now you have to remind yourself to do the opposite. And that's what I love about it. It's like this constant wrestling with you're trying to develop instincts while also trying to tame them and sometimes react opposite, it's weird.
I love that description, and to sum that up in a single term that I love to use on people, not on people in videos and in content, but sometimes I'm talking about other posts and whatnot. Unconscious incompetence. You don't know what you don't know. It's just it is like that. There's a point beyond your high beams. You don't know what's there. You don't even know what you don't know. So like there are certain realms of flying that I won't even drift into or won't even entertain tackling by myself because I don't even know what the dangers are. Like
Right.
I'm just not experienced. I'm not educated in that. So I'm going to get some
It's
instruction first, or I'm going to consult some people.
it's
That's right.
the Errol Morris, Donald Rumsfeld thing of there are known
Yep.
unknowns and unknown unknowns. And it's like you don't even know
Right.
what you don't know, which is basically the process of learning how to fly, right? Where you're like, I don't know how bad I am because I don't know what I'm doing in the first place. And
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Ted, your wall is so emblematic of exactly what you're saying right now. It's profound.
Sometimes there's a cap. For the podcast, I have Mario blocks behind me with question marks, and that fits me very well.
So there you go.
Well, so where's it going, man? Like, like where's all this going? Because you've got people that are, successful like you are in the sense where it's like it is success, but it's harder for you to be nimble and make big turns, right? Because you have an audience that has an expectation, or you have sponsors, or you have, you can't just go. I mean, maybe you're probably also you have better taste and are probably smarter than I am, but like you can't go completely in a different direction. You know what I mean? Like you have to make small corrections or changes through your process. But how do you feel like you're hemmed in at all?
Ooh, I didn't expect that question. I don't know. I don't
Pass.
I don't think yeah, pass. No, next. I don't think I am necessarily hemmed in. I'm very fortunate to have an awesome tight batch of sponsors that let me do my thing. And of course, like I've designed it that way, and I've taught. We work together, and I sponsor with companies that I like, or work with companies that I like sponsors, to promote things that I truly use and love. And it's a very good relationship in preserving my creativity. I have complete creative control. Of course, I can't, just totally go off the rails and completely be inappropriate and all that kind of stuff. Then that's, I guess, if there is a way that I'm hemmed in, that would be it. But I also don't even want to jar my audience like that necessarily. I don't, I definitely do not feel as though I am in a position where I can't really deviate from my current format. Now I do change it up here and there. I think my audience has sort of balked at certain formats that I've put out, and certainly if it's a video that really like had a little bit to do with aviation, but it was just a really cool project that was kind of a tangent away from aviation, but it kind of had something to do with it, but it didn't. You know what I mean? Like when I have produced something like that, that is like what I think is an incredible production, very pretty and everything, it completely flops if it had nothing to do with airplanes. And that's understandable because that is what my subscribers subscribed for. They want to see airplane stuff. They want to see IFR. They want to see the technical nitty gritty stuff is what I have found just resonates the most. You know, of course, the comments are overwhelmingly positive with the cinematic stuff where I am pouring my creative heart and soul into a video. Do those perform the best in terms of views? Not really. Just I saw a couple comments, and you even pinned one to the screen here about that full length touch and go video. Absolute minimum effort, maximum views. I think it's at like close to 4 million. I haven't looked at it in a while, but it just, you know, just ridiculous. It's it completely took off, and I think that's because the audience was able to just kind of sit back and watch. They didn't even have to move their head. I was doing that for them. And sit there and watch the whole process start to finish, literally from starting the airplane to shutting it down, talking on the radios, going through the checklist, everything. And I have found when I've produced videos that are very procedures heavy and very nitty gritty like that, it resonates super well.
It looks like you're being
yeah.
trolled in the chat right now. Just want to give you a heads up.
That's probably, yeah.
Yeah, that was somebody named Chelsea Smith that said highest view count, lowest editing effort. And
yeah.
I like referring to Josh and
She
Chelsea
knows.
as the prom king and queen of aviation.
Well, you know, the thing is though, is
Absolutely.
that's a universal thing, right? Like the Beatles did this. Like, I mean, it's just there's something about art and creativity that lends itself to this kind of back and forth between you digging deeply into something and almost maybe alienating an audience because you're on some sort of path, and you have to almost build up your belief in it because you put so much into it. Or
Right.
you're just more deeply aware of the nuances and wow, like this is a level of craft and everything that I'm after. But that becomes more of a reflection of yourself. Whereas
Mhm.
like, you know, you had said about the video that I made about Marfa, you said the editing was very simple, and that really stuck
Mhm.
with me because I actually I didn't film that much, I didn't shoot that much, I was just kind of in it, and when I got back, I really wanted to make something about it, but I didn't have like the coverage that you would normally have or whatever.
Mhm.
But what that amounted to was just like I don't know, it doesn't matter, like just I don't have to have this complex array of angles and available footage. You know, it's really just about what it is or what you want it to
Right.
be. And so I didn't take that as a slight at all, by the way. I took that as like a wow,
No,
like that's actually kind of what you're talking about, right? So
right.
so when are we going to get the second channel that's just called Josh's Touch and Goes?
You know, I don't know. I have thought about doing something like that, but one issue with that is I would lose my creative outlet. If I focused on those full length videos on Aviation 101 is what I'm talking about. I would lose that creative outlet that like just straight up my soul needs in terms of cinematography and producing a story. I have to have that in some way. Now I can exercise that outside of aviation and just produce the nitty gritty indirect training type stuff on the channel. I could absolutely create a second channel at some point that's just a bunch of full length videos. People really do just want to watch me fly and screw up. But
Well, and you do have you know, your paid levels and things where people can
mhm.
access more things too. So that's also a good
Yeah,
place for
yeah,
people
and I'm
to.
wanting to do a lot more there too. And I'm kind of playing with different ideas of where to really take that. I think full length videos that would be a good place for them because that's really kind of like the diehard niche side of it, and that does take additional time for me to produce and edit that stuff. But I also think they're very valuable. So I don't know. I'm just very torn on kind of where to take that, and I'm always asking for feedback and all that kind of stuff, and just trying to figure out ways to do it. And now that things are settling down in terms of my video backlog. Those are some items on my to-do list that I am finally able to get to this fall.
Awesome. Yeah. You got a lot of spare time. You're fine.
Yeah, tons of it.
Yeah.
So Christopher B in the comments kind of asked a series of questions, and I'll kind of bounce off that and ask it here, which is like, how do you decide a topic that how do you decide where does your next video come from? Do you shoot footage and then think, oh, you know what, I think I know what the subject will be, or you say, I'm going to do a series on touch and goes, or how do you choose that?
So it's a very good question. And the short answer is it depends. Now here comes the long answer. There are really two types of videos that I put on the channel. One of them is the topical type of video where I am talking to the camera for most of the video in some way, and we're focusing on some sort of a topic. It might be IFR clearances, or right before Oshkosh, I actually put out a couple of videos that highlighted the common mistakes when you fly into Oshkosh. Don't do these top 5 things, like, please, it makes it unsafe for everybody, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So those are the topical videos. Those are absolutely planned out, not necessarily scripted, but they're bulletized ahead of time. And I have kind of a list that I run down through the video, topics that I want to touch on, things that I want to mention. So those are for the most part, laid out in a storyboard ahead of time. When it comes to the sort of the more cinematic, pretty, like, we're going on a trip and I'm going to take you along and tell you this story, those are really just off the cuff. They're filmed. We get as much B-roll as we can. We rig the cameras in the plane, or these days I'm just using a couple 360 cameras, and we gather as much content as we can. I talk my way through flying when we're actually going through procedures and IFR, all that kind of stuff. And at the end of the whole trip, I have all of my massive database of stuff that's compiled into a folder for each day. And within that folder, there's a folder for each flight, and then a handheld folder, and then a folder for each camera on each flight. So I have all of that stuff organized. And then later in editing, usually before editing starts, is when I can kind of look at the trip as a whole and be like, okay, how can I divide this into some videos? How many videos? I don't want to abuse my audience with like watering it down and being like, I can get 10 videos out of this, and it was like a 3-day trip or something like that. So really those sort of cinematic narrative traveling videos, they're just done off the cuff. And I will script the voiceovers later as I'm editing the video. And I kind of have a rough idea of what I want this episode to look like when I begin editing. And then I just record voiceovers as I go and slap it together. It's easy as that.
And you just go to AI and Adobe AI and just say, make a story. No, but it's definitely.
I'm waiting for the day.
Right.
But I will interject on that point real quick.
Yeah.
I did see a quote just the other day about AI. So I am using a lot of AI in my editing, but it is only things like transcribing a clip so that I can do the text-based editing and snip out the parts of my dialogue that I don't want. I do that manually, but the AI writes the transcript. I'm using AI to doctor up audio to make it sound better, just little things like that. I read a quote the other day that was in reference to AI about articles, and how AI is just going to start writing news articles and opinion columns and stuff. And somebody in this article that was written by a human about AI said, why would anybody want to bother reading something that nobody could be bothered to write? Yeah. And I think that's going to be our saving grace in art when it comes to the fear of AI just making all the movies and everything. We're going to lose interest if no human could have been bothered to create that. So anyways, that was a little tangent that I wanted to say.
That's good. So yeah, well, also AI is sort of pumping out.
That's great.
Yeah, it's pumping out things that it's scraping and then regurgitating. So it's getting dumber as much as it's getting smarter. But I use Descript, which is an AI type of tool for exactly what you're talking about: transcription and sweetening sound, and all that. Without all, I was an audio engineer by trade and producer for many, many years, and I know how to do surgery on audio. And my God, am I so glad to just go make it sound good.
Yeah. Adobe Speech Enhance is like, I can't wait till that feature's added to the non-beta Premiere.
Yeah, it's gonna start getting weird over time, though. We're gonna talk about the future now, and maybe we'll have to freeze frame this moment and really start to look at what's happening now. Because if
Yeah.
we in 10 years are like, wow, Josh has not even aged like a minute, you know, like we'll know like when he,
Yeah.
it's kind of like steroids or for athletes or something. It's like we
Right.
know when he started. We know when he started. No, but
Just send Chelsea a message and ask her what I really look like, and she'll tell the truth. Like, he looks terrible these days.
Yeah. So let's talk about the future. I mean,
Yeah.
I do find it interesting when other platforms, or even YouTube, there's a lot of people. I know I have a lot of friends that have very, very large YouTube channels that are incomprehensibly large. It's
Thanks
where
for
their
saying
whole
that, Brian.
I'm just saying, but like their whole world is in that world, right? Like if something,
Right.
if YouTube goes and says you can't do this now or you can't do that, like they're subject to that. Do you sense any volatility with YouTube as a platform, or do you feel an impetus to start trying to diversify or exist in other realms? Or
I would love to diversify, and I have chatted with different entities that try to do, some sort of like social media aviation or like a aviation video network or something like that. I feel like in this at this point in time, that's kind of reinventing the wheel depending on how you do it. Um, I I don't know. I'm very deep into the YouTube space in terms of like my video career and everything. If YouTube went away or just magically said, "Hey, you can't do," we sold our website to some other, massive entity and no more. Bye. Yeah, I'd be hosed a little bit.
yeah,
I would definitely have to scramble and figure out what's next. Um, Now there are things that if you have made a business model out of this, and if you're smart about it, which is what I did a couple of years ago. I'm not saying that I'm smart. I'm not, but I I did this a few years ago, and at this point it's kind of automated. But basically, anybody who goes through and interacts with my website, I have their email. So I've basically a massive email list, and for those out there listening, don't worry if you land on aviation101.com. I don't magically have your email. You have to like go check out and buy something or sign up for the paid side of the website or something like that. But I have a pretty sizable mailing list, that if anything like that ever did happen, I could be like, hey, FYI, this happened. I'm going to figure out something else. If you would like to be in the loop, click this button. I do not send out email campaigns. Different people have told me that I should. I haven't figured out a really useful way to do that. I don't want to end up in people's spam folders. I don't want people to be annoyed by an Aviation 101 email and like find the unsubscribe button or that kind of thing. I feel like right now YouTube is sufficient for that, and it's doing decently well. But that is something I've given a little bit of thought to, in terms of YouTube going away, and I have thought about sort of building my own engine to host my own videos. Not talking about a network to like bring the top 10 YouTube influencers now. I just want to produce my films and get them out to the people that want to see them. That's what I want to do. It's in whatever way that can happen. Right now, YouTube is my vehicle for that. I hope it doesn't go away. I hope
And
at least Google will give us
let's go
warning if
ahead.
that's going to happen.
Let's go ahead and plug. As a member, I feel compelled to plug Josh's aviation101.com and join his cockpit club. I am a proud member of it and
I
have ordered
appreciate that,
stuff from
Ben.
you in the past. Absolutely. So y'all can, for the audio audience that is not watching this live, Ted will have in our show notes, or doobly-doos as they like to call it these days, links to Josh's website. And also, if you have feedback about this episode, we'd love to hear from you at midlifepilotpodcast@gmail.com. Wanted to throw that out there real quick. So what else?
well, listen, Ted. As we were talking about we were imagining this apocalyptic scenario where YouTube goes belly up. I was just thinking, please don't start an OnlyFans, okay? Ted, just promise me.
Ted, we talked about this.
We've already got the midlife one, yeah. 0 subscribers. Actually, there's people that pay us not to post on it. So.
Exactly. Reverse ransom.
Right.
Oh, man. Well, yeah. So
I did want
go
to
ahead,
mention
Ben.
real quick, the Badger pilot gave a shout out to Chels. My daughter still talks about meeting her at Osh this year. We went straight to the Kid Venture after, and she earned her toolkit.
That's
Thanks to
awesome.
Chels for being an inspiration to his daughter. So didn't want to let
That is
that one go by.
fantastic. Absolutely. That's so cool. And we love going to events like that just to interact with people. And it's to us,
Yep.
it's all about the people. It's all about the audiences that appreciate our content. And gosh, so many, it's so awesome seeing little kids, especially little girls, or not even little girls necessarily, all girls come up to Chelsea and be like, I never imagined being an aircraft mechanic. And here you are. You're like this girly girl that's totally killing it with the mechanics related stuff. So
I
that's, yeah,
felt
it's
like,
awesome to see.
so I have 3 boys. The youngest is 18, and he'll be going to Middle Georgia College to get his maintenance certificate. But
Fantastic.
when we were taking a tour, I would say of the 12 people that were on the tour with us that day, there was 4 girls that were going to be joining the same
That's
class,
awesome.
which I thought was a
That's great.
very high percentage and it really gave me a lot of hope for the future. So
Yeah,
absolutely
that's
agree with
awesome.
that. So, yeah.
Talk about job security, man. My gosh, it's
I'm so
it's
jealous of
Yeah.
them. I seriously, I wish I was 18 right now, knowing what I know. I mean, that goes without saying, but holy cow, this kid's going to have his whole life. He can pick and choose a lot of different things. That's for sure.
we're in a
Yeah.
world now where like parents are pleading with their teenagers, like, please do not go to college. They're
Right. Yeah. Go to trade school.
yes,
Yeah.
you'll be buying us a mansion in no time.
Yeah.
No college. You want to be an influencer now?
Right. Well,
no, that was not the point. Yeah.
Right.
So Josh, if you took a year off, what would you do?
Man, you're coming at me with all the questions I didn't expect. What would I do
Yeah.
if I took a year off? So to be clear, what am I taking a year off from? Because my
Oh,
work and play are very much like
I see. It's
blurred.
That's fair.
it's a government mandated. No, it's just like, let's just say that okay, I don't want to say you have like a meltdown, okay? It's
Right.
more like people have these kind of existential moments where they want to take a sabbatical from the rhythm of what they've been in and doing in their lives, right? And they might want to
Mhm.
go to Valencia and learn how to make pasta or something, or just kind of disappear for a while. So,
Yeah.
what do you got?
Gosh, I don't know. So I am very much into the outdoors and overlanding. I have a Nissan Xterra that has a rooftop tent. It's all decked out, winch and the big bumper and all that kind of stuff. I would love to just go disappear in that thing for a while. Chelsea and I both love camping in the outdoors. We love Alaska. Maybe a road trip to Alaska. That'd be great.
Yeah.
I would probably still have to take cameras with me because that's just a passion of mine. And sort of document in that way. One thing that she's super into is sailing, and she's kind of gotten me into looking at that kind of stuff. We've like kicked around the idea of doing the whole like live on a boat for a little while and do the Great Loop or something like that. That would probably be my number 2 choice. Would be go live on a boat, buy a sailboat, and go live on it.
But what about something exciting? I'm just
I know. I don't know, man. I'm just kind of like a lame, laid back kind of just don't bother me.
That's amazing. The idea of yeah, like just something about a boat, right? That's the ultimate. I'm out here, man. I'm not in the rhythm of
You're out there.
society. Maybe that's something that pilots appreciate, right? Like this idea that you're separate from everything,
Right.
for a minute.
Yeah.
So Terry and my wife, we started this last year and we're going again next year, but we have some friends that have their captain's licenses and we'll go charter a boat. Last year we went to St. Lucia, sailed around. We're going to go to Bahamas this year. But it was
Fantastic.
what was fascinating about that, and tying that back to aviation, it's kind of interesting that is some overlap in sailing a boat and knowing the
Mhm.
winds. And I took my sailing buddy up, and he's like, "You guys don't tack in the wind when you're in your airplane?" And I'm like, I never really thought of it that way. I guess you could, but
Yeah.
uh,
Different.
if the
The
wind's right on
sailboat's
the
a
nose,
wing. It's an airfoil, but on its side, So it's a little different.
that's
But yeah, I
exactly
think
right. So, but
it's a
anyway, that
knowledge and
sounds like a lot of fun.
appreciation for the wind and the elements. Yeah.
Ben, when you told me about that, I wanted to immediately go reference some of your like flight aware, just to see if you.
Yeah. What's the ADS-B for your
Well, I
sailboat?
am actually
Yeah.
thinking about taking the plane. We're going to pick up the plane in Nassau. I mean, pick up the boat in Nassau, and so I am thinking about making that hop over to the Bahamas in my single engine,
It's beautiful.
making me a little nervous. Yeah, so we'll see about that. And I've seen your videos on that as well, and many others, but on making those international flights.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
So Josh, you have obviously.
Awesome.
I'm sure that if you wanted to, if you were really driven, there's some reason, right? Like why you've stuck with your plane, right? You've done a lot of amazing things to it, but I feel like if you ever flew another plane, would the world fall apart? Would people lose their minds? I mean, do you have
Do you think it's part of your brand?
do you have a Pilatus that you don't tell anybody about?
That would be great. I would love it if I did. No, there's really no reason. It's just things with the video business. So I went to college full time for 4 years, got a bachelor's degree in computer engineering that I absolutely do not use. Definitely, in hindsight, trade school would have been a great option just to get some sort of an education like that. After college, I had already had the YouTube channel rolling for quite a while, but after college, I really dove into filmmaking and media full time. So it has just become such a time suck and such a monster that keeps me busy on a regular basis that the 172 is just it's what we have. It's the easy thing to fly. Oh, time to go film some more content and do another trip. Just and then the content stacks up and I just get busy. Now, in the last couple of years, I've really been thinking about what to sort of transition to. We're not going to get rid of the 172 because that was the plane that my dad and I got 10 years ago. It's our father son project. The paint scheme means something to us, and we've done so much to it, and it's what we want. Uh, and of course, he's still flying too. My dad flies quite a bit, so that's the plane that he loves too. We're not getting rid of that thing, but I'm
Featured at
really
Oshkosh, yeah.
yeah, exactly. But I'm also really starting to lean into, I'm finding that the cross country mission is kind of at the center of what I need, and I've really been looking at different airframes, both experimental and certified. I'm a big fan of Moonies. Um, I've looked at some twins. I don't think that would be a wise jump for me at the moment. That would be a lot to handle, not only financially, especially if it's like big bore Lycomings or Continentals, um, but also I'm a very new multi-engine pilot, and just like the unconscious incompetence thing, I don't want to dive into something head first that I ultimately do not have all that much experience with. So I'm kind of like trying to keep myself in the realm of reality here. So I don't know, something like a Mooney or a Bonanza. Dream single engine would be, if you're familiar with Sling. Chelsea and I were really admiring the Sling high wing that was on display at Oshkosh,
Oh yeah.
and we got to
Yeah.
talk to the founder of the company and everything. That's just a gorgeous airplane. Bonus that it has an airframe parachute too, because that's a big safety thing for me. So many fatal accidents could have been non-fatal had there been an airframe parachute. So that's just a big thing to me too. So I don't know. To answer your
Ted's
question,
Flying Plastic Egg has a parachute. The CTLS has a parachute.
heck yeah.
Yeah. So we're running a little bit short on time, but I wanted to make sure that we got something. Your mission, right, is about safety as well as enjoying everything, right? And so
Yep.
I would say the median audience for this podcast are people like us. We're midlife pilots. We've probably been doing this for 2 to 4 to 5 years. Ben's been doing it a little longer, although he's frozen, so we don't really know. We can't ask him. But we're all at the top of what I call Mount Stupid, right? In terms of the killing zone, like
Yeah, great book.
and and I find that I read that when I was training, and then I read it again. Then I read it again after I had some
Good for you.
more experience, and it's really interesting to go back and revisit things through the lens of more experience, right? But and that goes for even some of your videos and things, right? I've gone back and watched stuff with that. I might have watched that video when I was training, and but then through the lens I have now, I might derive something else out of it. But I guess what I'm curious about is if you like, what are some core reasonings or thoughts you might have for midlife pilots that are at the top of Mount Stupid. We're just starting to really feel like we got a handle on what's going on.
Never stop learning. And that's a very broad thing to say. And it's not very deep, but I think just knowing where your limits are and always being willing um, to exercise humility, knowing that you are not at the top of the knowledge pyramid here, or whatever we want to hypothetically call it, and you never will be. None of us ever will be. And I think there's gosh, it's just such a broad topic, and what I normally answer that kind of question with is stay humble, never ever stop learning, and just go out there and experience it. Keep flying, stay proficient. And that's why I emphasize that at the end of every single video. Stay happy, healthy, current, stay proficient, because your currency means nothing if you are not proficient. Currency is just the absolute bare minimum that the regulations require. So the best thing you can do for your own confidence and your own flying and your own perception of where you're at with your flying is go fly. Go fly. Know your limits, have your personal minimums and adhere to those, and stay humble with that. But go fly. Go experience different things, just like you did going out to Marfa. And you exercised humility, you let your guard down and said, "Hey, I've never done this density altitude thing here. Do you have anything that would be of use to me in that regard?" And I think I sat down and spent maybe 5-6 minutes just typing up an email like, "Hey, here are the things to watch out for." And then you said that helped a lot, and then you went out there and you did it. You just went out there, flew out there, tackled it. And I think that is such an important thing for us to do as pilots, is just go out and experience it. Go do it. Go try it. Know where your limits are. Don't kill yourself in the process. Acknowledge the fact that there are things that you don't know. You don't know what you don't know. So mind that, but go out there and experience it. Go do it.
Right on. Well said. Ben and Ted, you guys have anything else before we wrap it up?
No, again, just really thankful for you joining us. Been watching for a really long time, and I don't watch it because you're there. I watch it because the content's great. And so,
I appreciate
yeah, I've
that.
got nothing
That means
else.
a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd love it if the audio group would share this podcast, write us a review, give us a follow. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit the like, subscribe. As Brian likes to say, push all the buttons, flip all the switches. You can support us via following us on Spotify as little as 99 cents a month. These proceeds go to help me buy better equipment so I don't sound so bad, and maybe even have a better connection than I've had for a lot of this podcast. Anything else, Ted and Brian?
No, I just again, yeah, super grateful, Josh, man, really appreciate it. We'd love to have you back every week, so looking forward to that.
Hey, let me know whenever you want me back.
No, but seriously, it's been a pleasure. I hope it's been of value to the listeners. And we have had to do a lot of shifting in this podcast. Thanks, Ben and Ted, for it's almost so close to Bill and Ted. Ben, thank you.
That's it. I keep hearing that echo in my head every time you say it.
I get it every time. Yeah.
So yeah, I gotta make that meme. So yeah, but thank you guys, Ben and Ted, for sticking with me while we miss having Chris, midlife pilot. He's in the chat. He just popped in after a band rehearsal or whatever he's doing. And when I think about how hard it is to make YouTube content, how hard it is to make something that you care about and that other people care about, it's real easy for the effort that's behind the scenes, the amount of slicing and dicing that you're doing on a maniacal level to tell these stories is so, it's kind of like when you see somebody really great at basketball, it's like, wow, they make it look so easy, right? And it's just because they've shot 1,000 free throws a day or whatever. That does not pass me, man. Like it's very clear that what you have is earned, and and that is only gone about through repetition and hard work, and so it's noticed and it's appreciated.
Definitely.
Hey, I really appreciate that. It definitely is a lot of hard work, and I just put this stuff together and put it out because I love doing it. I'm very passionate about the safety and instructing side. I wish I had more time in my days to instruct full time and actually be a more active flight instructor these days. I hope I will get back to that point at some point. But yeah, I love doing it, so I appreciate any support about it.
All right, man. And by the way, like
wanted
if you
to
want to
put
do it,
this-
if you want to do an instrument series with somebody that's incapable of understanding instruments, like
Absolutely.
I've got a guy.
Yeah.
No, but
Just go
Absolutely.
into this with eyes wide open, Josh. Just you've been warned.
I appreciate the warning.
all right. Well, Ben, get us out of
Yeah,
here. And,
that's
Josh, we'll
great.
talk to you again.
Thanks everybody for joining us in the live chat. We really appreciate it. Signing off episode 47 of the Midlife Pilot Podcast. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks.